It is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That, of course, brand new stuff from LA Guns. That one called A Drop of Bleach. And on the line right now to drop a drop of bleach into the CMS gene pool, it's the one and only Phil Lewis of LA Guns. Phil, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, bud?
Excellent, man. Well, Phil, first...
Well, thank you. It's cool that you're playing some of the deeper cuts off the record. There's some good stuff buried in there. You know, most people have been playing Speed and Sticky Fingers, and which is great too. You know, they're real good, short, 3.5-minute rockers. But this album has a lot of contrast, and makes me really happy that you're playing stuff like that. Cool. That people are getting to hear it, because it's a really the album's been a labor of love, but we worked hard on it. That's
sure.
For sure.
Well, and it definitely shows. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing the same press that I am, that a lot of people are saying that it's throwback. A lot of people are comparing it to somewhere between the debut and Cocked and Loaded and maybe Vicious Circle, because it's heavy. Yeah, I feel that it does have that vibe. It's something that in between the first and Cocked and Loaded, perhaps. Maybe what Hollywood Vampires would have sounded like if we hadn't gotten involved so much in the music biz industry. It weighed us down a lot, and it changed us. We never wanted to do songs like It's Over Now, and I've got to admit, Kiss My Love Goodbye, which is, one of our biggest hits. Right.
But, there's songs that did involve outside writers, and I really felt diluted the band. This record is pure LA Guns. You hear it, and we weren't going for nostalgia at all. We were just doing what we know, and what we've always done, and it turned out great. And people from our generation, people from the 80s, love it, and it seems to be going down very well with people with the more contemporary crowd too. So can't argue with that.
No doubt, man. Well, look, before we talk directly about the record fully, let's talk about the period of time right before it. Obviously, the big change is you reuniting once again with Tracy and you stepping away from working with Steve. Talk a little bit about both of those decisions and, where we are today versus where we were, a year and a half ago.
Well, me and Tracy hadn't talked to each other for almost 15 years. He made a decision to leave the band just before Waking the Dead came out. And it was almost catastrophic for us. But we decided we're going to carry on without him, and we did all right. And as I said, we continued for 15 years, and we put out some respectable records I'm real proud of. Tales from the Strip, Hollywood Forever. Are both, great records, and I enjoyed doing them. I had an opportunity. It was the actual beginning of the reunion, the actual part where I hadn't seen him. I was invited. There's an event takes place in Vegas.
Okay.
Every Christmas time. It's called Toys for Tots, and musicians all play for nothing. And it's to raise money for children, needy children around Christmas time. So they have toys, and the Marines are involved in it, and it's kind of a big deal in Vegas.
Sure.
And Tracy and his band had agreed to do it very graciously, and the organizer gave me a call and said, "Look, Tracy's doing it. Would you be interested in getting up and doing a couple of songs? It's for a good cause, and I think the fact that you haven't seen him and you haven't done anything in such a long time will generate a lot of interest and raise money for the event." So how could I say no?
Sure.
I couldn't turn that down, and I asked her. I said, "Does Tracy want me to do it?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, Tracy's really totally up for it if you're willing." So I agreed, and I went down. We didn't have any rehearsal or sound check or anything like that. I just showed up, at the gig, an hour or so before we were supposed to play, and walked into the dressing room, and there he was, my nemesis, the guy that I hadn't seen, the guy that I'd been at war with for the last 15 years, sitting in the corner by himself, minding his own business, drinking a glass of milk. Actually, it wasn't. It was a White Russian, but it looked like a glass of milk.
Right.
And it was like, oh my God, this is my old mate, And we sat down and we started talking. We didn't talk about negative stuff, what the fuck were you thinking, and but you're sorry now, and anything like that. No, we were just talking about daily events and what songs we were going to play, and keeping it light.
Sure.
And we got to get up and play the songs, and I hadn't announced to. There were a lot of people there that didn't know that I was doing it, and I just got up and we opened with Over the Edge, and I let Tracy and the band start it up, and I walked on stage, and the look on people's faces was pretty funny. And it sounded great, it felt great, and it was great, and we started talking after that, and I had a solo acoustic show. I invited him to come and play some guitar on the following week, which he did, and he said that he had this deal in the pipeline with Frontiers, and he was working on a solo record, and would I be interested in singing a couple of tracks? And I was like, yeah, sure, let me hear the tracks.
Sure.
And I can't remember exactly what he played me. He played me a couple of pieces from it. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really, really something. This is really good.
Okay.
And I was like, well, what else you got? And before I knew it, I was on board to do the whole record, and very happy and grateful too as well. And the timing actually worked out very well. I had already given my notice in to Steve Riley, and the other version, I was pretty much over it. We put a record out 5 years ago, Hollywood Forever, and I was really proud of it. And I wanted to make another record, and it wasn't Steve didn't want to. He just wasn't very enthusiastic about it.
Okay.
And he was very much. He wore a lot of hats in the band, and he was pretty much it's pretty much safe to say he managed the band, and it was something. There's no way I could put a record together without him, and he wasn't very enthusiastic about it. So I gave him my notice in October of 2014, and told him that by my last show would be December.
Okay.
Would be December 31st. Of the 15th, and then from that point on, I'd be a free agent, and that was even before I had there was any talk of a reunion between me and Tracy. I was just thinking I was just going to go off and do a solo thing, and maybe put a band together, maybe just go out with an acoustic and just play a few shows a month. That was my plan, and so it actually worked out timing-wise very well.
Sure. Now, I'm curious. I want to go back to something you said. You said that when you first sat down with Tracy, you kept it light. Was there a point where you guys had to deal with some of the harshness of that time that you were apart? Because there's a lot of mudslinging that went back and forth. I got to imagine that you had to kind of work through that, at least on some level.
Yeah, to be honest, we don't talk about it much.
Okay.
I've got to say that Tracy is a much better person.
Okay.
Than the person I remember bailing on us. He's a lot more mature. He's a father now, a very good one too.
Sure.
And he just seems to have a lot more empathy than he ever did before. I understand his frustration at that time and why he did it. I was frustrated too. I think it was wrong of him to quit the band. I think he should have just taken a sabbatical, honestly. I think he should have just fucked off with Nicky and done the Brides and come. Nicky was obviously not going to give up Motley Crue, so
right.
It didn't make sense why Tracy would do it. But he did, and we move on, and we picked up the pieces, and he went on to do, the Brides did its thing, and it fizzled out, and he didn't really have much choice. He had to start his own version of LA Guns, and I feel that was definitely the lowest point in the band's history, in the band's career, when there's two versions of the same band going out, confusing the hell out of the people, of the fans, and consequently we became a bit of a joke. We got I think we hold the record for most I think we said something like 47 people claim to have been in LA Guns at one point or another.
Wow.
Which is a joke.
Yeah.
It's funny now in hindsight, but at the time it was really embarrassing.
Sure.
And definitely the low point. But we've moved on, and things are much better now, and LA Guns has got back its credibility that it had when we first got together.
Sure. And if now I have not seen you guys, because you haven't been through Cleveland, I don't believe, since you and Tracy got back together.
No, we haven't actually. It's great. I mean, the chemistry's there, and the music, and the band we put together is amazing. A lot of people will say, well, it's not really a reunion if you don't have Mick and Kelly in it. But, we did invite them to get involved. When I agreed that I was going to do the record, I gave Kelly a call and said, look, I'm working on some lyrics. Why don't you help me out with this? And he wasn't very interested. And Mick Cripps couldn't do it. He has a regular day gig now. Sure. That he's been doing for years. So we did run it by him, and we didn't get any traction there. So we stuck with the band that Tracy had been playing with for the last couple of years. Shane Fitzgibbon on drums and Johnny Martin on bass.
Right.
We needed a second guitar player. I suggested Michael Grant, who'd been with my version for a couple of years, and that worked. Tracy liked him. They got on well. Michael is a big Tracy fan.
Sure.
And the two of them get on great, and we have some really cool impromptu jams that just sort of flare up in the middle of songs or in between songs that make for a really interesting show.
Right.
For me, certainly, and I think for the fans too.
Sure. And the one thing, and I can only judge from YouTube, but it just looks like you guys are having fun like you used to again. I mean,
absolutely.
I've seen the band.
I mean, and that was one of the reasons Tracy bailed, because it wasn't fun, and I'll be the first to admit it. It wasn't fun during the recording of Vicious Circle when we were just so fragmented. We were so we'd become so corporate. We were just corporate pawns, and the band had lost its soul, lost its identity. During when we released Waking the Dead, we were on bills, we were on festivals, and we were in slots that that was beneath us. And me and Steve, being family guys at that time, we didn't have the luxury of being able to turn our noses up and say, no, we don't want to do it, because we had to pay the bills. Tracy wasn't in that position, and I respect that. He couldn't bear it. He wasn't ready,
right,
just to become a drone, and he bolted, and I get that now, and I don't hold a grudge for it. And you know what? After 10, 15 years, if you hold a grudge with somebody, it's a bit like taking poison and expecting them to die.
Right.
It's going to eat you up. It's negative, and I knew within 5 minutes of hanging with him backstage while he was drinking his glass of milk that this is my buddy, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. He changed my life. When I joined LA Guns, when he invited me to come over and audition from London, and he covered my ticket, and his manager, Alan Jones at the time, set me up in a hotel, in an apartment. That was a big deal. That changed my life, and it's right that we are together and we play together. He makes me work harder than any other guitar player I've ever worked with. There's something about the chemistry between us that just makes us just give it,
Sure.
that little bit more, that little 110%, as and he brings it out in me, and I think I do in him as well.
Sure. Well, it definitely shows on the new record, which is called The Missing Piece. It's, to me, it was interesting that you released Christine as a single at all on this record, because it's pretty much different than the rest. The rest of it is so in your face, whether it's Speed or Drop of Bleach or Knife to a Gunfight or what. I mean, it is so bang and it's in your face. It really is obvious that the minute you guys got back together, the I don't want to say anger, because it doesn't sound like you're angry at all, but the angst is back. You know what I mean?
It's in the intensity, and yeah. Well, I think Christine is a really stark contrast to Speed.
Okay.
And I think I didn't have a choice in what's released as a single.
Sure.
That's a label decision. But I think what they're going for is trying to let people know what a diverse record it is, what a full musical spectrum the songs cover. And as I said, they got 2 or 3 songs, killer, short, quick, in your face, Sticky Fingers, Speed, songs that are quick, disposable pop rock songs. And then we've got like epic 10-minute pieces like The Missing Piece, Gave It All Away. That we want to be played together. Rather, how We Will Rock You, Queen's We Will Rock You goes into
We Are the Champions.
We Are the Champions.
Right.
That's one of the things we were going for on this record. There are a lot of nods to our idols. That's a nod to Queen. Speed is obviously, we use the line from Deep Purple, Highway Star. Mm-hmm. That's a nod to our idols. And The Floods, Just the Fall of the Rain, is an homage to Eric Burdon and the Animals. We wanted to do our version of House of the Rising Sun, right. Not copy it, not rip it off, not play the same chords and change the words, but our own interpretation of that. We're going for that vibe. Sure. And we're happy to put these hints out in the songs to acknowledge and prove that, and we're not ripping anyone off. It's just a homage.
Right. Now listening to the record too, Phil, one thing that stands out and has always stood out on anything that you've sang, whether it's in concert or on recording, is that your voice just hasn't gone away. And I know you're out there, you play a ton of the package tours, and you see a lot of singers that were your contemporaries or are your contemporaries that just can't sing well anymore. And I'm not going to name any of them or ask you to.
Right.
But what is it that you have done that they haven't seemingly done that has kept your voice going?
Maybe it's the red wine. I don't know. Well, thank you. I take it as an amazing compliment. I do feel, I've been doing this for a long time now. My first band was Girl. My first LP was LP. My first release was in 1980, and it was all right. It was okay as far as my singing goes. It was not very good, I'll admit, but it was passionate. It was, I wasn't. I knew I wasn't that great. I wasn't, trying to sound like Ronnie James Dio, and I couldn't even if I wanted to. But I over the years, with every demo, with every album, I just felt myself. I'd listen back, and I just felt I was getting a little bit better with each release. And I don't smoke. I take good care of my voice. There's certain things you got to do. I do like loosen up my chords before I go on stage, and I keep my trap shut afterwards, especially if I've got like a bunch of shows in a row.
Right.
And it's made the discipline has made me a better singer. And yeah, I know I'm no spring chicken now. And it's true. A lot of my contemporaries have changed, modified their songs, put them in, drop the keys a bit, so they can sing them. And fortunately, my pipes have, I take care of them and they take care of me.
No doubt, man. Well, I want to go into one touchy subject. It shouldn't be too touchy, but I'll start by saying I applaud you fully as anybody can, for not apologizing when the political correct world decided that all of a sudden, because of some comment that you made that was clearly misconstrued, made you a racist. So
yeah,
I have to
remember that.
I have
extraordinary. I know what you're talking about. I was a Fishhead Cantina show in Maryland.
Right.
A great venue, but hardly a theater or it's strange that an off the cuff comment, basically a rock bar, ended up giving me international notoriety for 5 minutes. What I said it was a shame. It was shortly after Prince passed away,
right?
And I said it's a shame that there are more. I can't remember. There were more rappers and less princes. I wish there were more princes and less rappers, or something like that. That was my point.
Mm-hmm.
I happened to stupidly say, say the word black people.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'd have just said, I wish there were more rappers, less rappers and more princes, it would have been fine. But I kind of set it up, and I became clickbait.
Right.
And to the point of even that cocksucker, Dr. Drew, wanted to get me on his show and fucking tear me apart. He brought in like 3 black journalists that were just ready to skin me alive, and I told them to fuck off. I wasn't going to do it. And I wrote that I'm not racist because I know I'm not, because I'm not, and I've grown up around black people, colored people, Indian people, Pakistani. I'm from London. It's the world's biggest melting pot. If you're racist, you don't stand a chance. Where I live here, I'm in Vegas at the moment.
Right.
I have black neighbors, and I don't live in a fancy neighborhood. These are working class people, and they're good people, and I help the kids. I've teaching the 10-year-old daughter I bought her a guitar and teaching her a few chords on it, and I'm trying to like broaden their horizons a little bit.
Sure.
So my conscience is clear, and I could have said it a little more delicately, perhaps. Maybe I'm just shocked that that it caused such a big deal, and I guess it must have been a slow news week.
Right, but what I thought was your best move out of the whole thing, and this is me personally, I thought the best thing you did was when you came out in your statement and said, "I apologize for nothing because I didn't do anything wrong."
No, I'm sorry. I do. I agree that with my sentiment. Don't you think? I mean, I love black music, Earth, Wind and Fire. Jimi Hendrix. It seems that the black community have kind of forgotten. What great rock and roll Isley Brothers. Where are those bands now?
Right.
Where's the new Earth, Wind and Fire?
Mm-hmm.
Where is the new Brothers Johnson? There isn't, and I think that's a shame, because they all want to be gangster rappers. None of them want to commit to learning an instrument. None of them, it's real sad, because you got to remember, black people invented rock and roll,
right? Exactly,
and it just seems they turn their back on it. It's like they're a little bit embarrassed by it, and I think that's a shame.
No, I agree with you, man. Well, what is not a shame is this new record, The Missing Piece. It is an excellent release from LA Guns. Phil, what does the rest of the year have for you? As far as, are you going to be out on the road, or? We're
slaves to the grind right now.
Sure.
The record was supposed to come out in June, and we had a big summer American tour to promote that, and of course it didn't come out, but we still had the tour to do. So that kept us busy during the summer, and it's helped pass the time because we missed our deadline, and now it's in fact coming out on October 13th.
Okay.
Friday the 13th, as it happens.
Nice.
And then, now we're going to be touring in earnest for that, And we got all over the place, back to Italy. We do a lot of stuff in Italy. Our label's Italian, Frontiers.
Sure.
We're kind of like their flagship at the moment, so we go over there a lot. Going to try and get some UK date shows in, and hopefully, a couple in France and Germany. But yeah, busy, real busy.
Excellent, man. Well, Phil, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick the closing track from the album. What would you like us to play to wrap this one up, and maybe tell us a quick story about it?
I'll go with the Floods, Just the Fault of the Rain. I love singing it, and I worked hard with Mitch Davis, who was involved in the writing and production. I flew to his studio in New York in January, and we did the vocals in 4 days. And this he brought out in me something that I've never, the singing part is I can do that, but the phrasing, the timing, and just the phrasing of the verse and is something that he helped me a lot with, and I'm incredibly proud of the way it turned out. The whole song in general, but just the phrasing of the verses, the little bit offbeat. It still gives me chills when I hear it.
All right, well, let's check it out right now. This is brand new
Thank
LA
you.
Guns right here on your Classic Metal Show.